Hello. Today we will talk about the artificial breeding of mussels and oysters. The meat of these sea molluscs is highly valued all over the world, as it has a high nutritional and healing value. No wonder the use of mussels and oysters has been practiced for more than 100 years. Even the Russian poet Alexander Pushkin was a big fan of oysters and often mentioned them in his works. Today, the demand for mussels and oysters exceeds the supply of the market. Fresh oysters or mussels are always in demand in restaurants and cafes. Therefore, more and more people are starting their own mussel or oyster farming business. France is the undisputed leader in the production of oysters and mussels in Europe. Even the French poet Léon Paul Fargue once wrote, "Oysters are the kiss of the sea on the lips." Mussels and oysters have firmly entered French cuisine. Until the 19th century, mussels and oysters were the most popular food available to all segments of the population. In rich houses, various dishes were cooked from them, baked in pies, stuffed poultry with them, or simply ate without counting. For the poor, oysters were a substitute for meat. Shellfish farming in the country is carried out under the auspices of the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. The institution has many responsibilities, ranging from preserving the natural habitat of oysters to quality control and maintaining high sanitary standards in production. In France, all who set up mussel or oyster farms must complete a special 2-year training program. The future owners of these farms are taught not only the cultivation of shellfish, but also the basics of ecology and economics. Thanks to this approach, French mussels and oysters are the standards of quality. Before I tell you how shellfish are grown, I will tell you a little about how oysters and mussels differ from each other. Although they belong to the same class, they are completely different in appearance and taste. Mussels are smaller than oysters. They are unpretentious to the habitat and can move along the bottom. Oysters are much larger than mussels, somewhere in 2 or 3 times. They lead a sedentary lifestyle and are not able to move along the bottom. Also, these molluscs differ in appearance. Mussels have a smooth shell with sharp edges. Oysters are rough to the touch with wavy shells. And perhaps their main difference is that mussels should never be eaten raw, while oysters, on the contrary, are served raw. Although mussels are a delicacy shellfish, they are much less expensive than oysters. This is because mussels are much easier to breed. They literally breed themselves in the wild and require minimal investment. So, several thousand mussels settle on 1 square meter of the farm. The popularity of mussels is primarily due to the fact that, unlike domestic animals, which need to be fed for a long time, satisfyingly and expensively with high-calorie and expensive compound feeds, mussels do not need to be fed at all. Just like buying fry. In fact, it is washed by the sea itself. To do this, it is enough to lower a special whip or dredge to the bottom during the spawning period, so that after 2 or 3 years, from July to January, you can get it completely covered with mussels. On average, up to 80 kilograms of these molluscs are stuck on one lash. It is very important to know that mussels are demanding on the environment. In polluted water, mussels will not grow and multiply. Therefore, before cultivation, it is necessary to experimentally check the desired area of the sea for the concentration of food for mussels and the level of pollution. All enterprises engaged in the cultivation of mussels can be divided into 2 types. The first type is where mussel farming begins with a collection of larvae or spat in the sea. The second is farms where a full cycle of cultivation is carried out, including self-breeding of larvae. In the first case, the farm breeds mussels in favorable waters. As a rule, quite a large number of mussel colonies already inhabit this territory. In essence, the technology simply offers collector surfaces for the larvae, where they can settle and gain a foothold. These collectors, which are a kind of structure suspended underwater from nylon ropes, floats and weights, and represent a complete imitation of the growth of mussels in natural conditions. After growing mussels, they are then transplanted into special sleeves for further growing. Farms that grow mussels in the second way namely on the ground, face much more difficulties. Mussels can be eaten by rapins or bottom fish or damaged by parasitic microorganisms. In addition, the ingress of sand spoils the quality of mussel meat. There is also a more labor-intensive, but faster way. In early spring, mussel larvae are harvested, reaching the size of a bean. They are placed in coarse, half-rotted canvas bags and hung over a whip. These collectors, which are a kind of structure suspended underwater from nylon ropes, floats and weights, in fact, represent a complete imitation of the growth of mussels in natural conditions. In a couple of months, the bags rot, and the mussels settle on the whip on their own. During their growth, you can change the location of the whip, gradually moving them closer to the shore. By the final ripening period, the whip with mussels is placed so that at low tide it completely protrudes from the water. You don't have to worry about mussels. The supply of salt water located inside the shell is enough for a mollusk for 1 or 2 days. This is necessary so that the mussels grow faster and acquire a better taste. Mussel breeders are well aware that if a mollusk is left without water from time to time, it tries to increase in size so that there is as much water as possible inside the shell. Thus, mussels can be grown in a year. In France, mussel farming is carried out on both the Atlantic and Mediterranean coasts. Here the method of industrial cultivation of mussels is called bouchot. At present, shellfish grown in this way have received the status of traditional production guarantee from the European Commission. To do this, so-called stakes are driven into the bottom of the sea coast in the tide zone. Poles, most often oak or chestnut, with a thickness of 15 to 30 centimeters and a length of 3 to 5 or 6 meters. The ropes plunge into the sea, waiting for the larvae to settle on them. The ropes are then attached to wooden poles, which are arranged in horizontal lines. In April or May, mussel larvae settle on stakes far from the shore in special mesh collectors, and grow enough by June. And already from June to September, these juveniles are collected in mesh bags, which are hung on stretch marks between poles closer to the coast. Mussels bouchot have tender and fragrant meat of bright orange color. In spring and autumn, during the breeding season, the whole sea is teeming with microscopic mollusc larvae, looking for a place to settle or fix, which leads them to artificial collectors. Food for itself, namely, zooplankton and algae, the mollusk independently takes from the sea, filtering the water. Mussels are extremely prolific. During this season, one adult shell spawns more than 10,000 eggs. For 14 months, the mussel increases in size up to 7 or 8 centimeters, and becomes a commercial seafood. During this time, it remains only to monitor the development of mussels, drive away poachers, and a year later, harvest and take them to buyers. Did you know that India is the third largest salt producer in the world, and a third of this salt comes from the depths of the Little Rann of Kutch Desert? Only those who can withstand the hot and arid climate can work and live here. And farmers from the Agaria caste are engaged in this hard work. The link to this video is on the right. Click and enjoy the salt growing video. And that's all for today. If you like this video, do not forget to like, subscribe to the channel, press the bell so as not to miss the news. And don't forget to leave your opinion in the comments. See you in the next video. Bye.